Hi from UK. Sorry, I'm unable to be present here in person due to some unexpected circumstances. But thanks to Bilal for allowing me to send this recorded presentation and be present with you virtually. So my presentation today is about an investigation we did to model the preference for new transport modes using VR, and it's a joint work with colleagues from ITS, Dr. Thomas Hancock and Dr. Yu Wang from School of Psychology, Bronte Auld and Faisal Mushtaq, and from Virtuosity of University of Leeds, Jorge Garcia and Albert Soleno. So, as we all know, we are actually living in a time where the transport landscape is changing very rapidly with shared mobility and shared bikes, ride hailing, ride sharing, etc. And we are expecting that there will be new modes like self driving cars and shared self driving taxis to be available to the mass public very soon. And also, there will be hyperloops and flying taxis, which will give people a lot more choices in terms of travel modes and how they would like to go from one place to another. The added challenge is there's a lot of going to be heterogeneity in how people think about these modes or accept these modes. So we need kind of travel behavior models that can capture this uh, heterogeneous preference towards new modes and services when these new modes are going to be available. But the challenge here is the real world travel behavior data is not available when it comes to future modes like self driving cars or air taxis or hyperloops. So, the traditional way to collect data for this has been the traditional stated preference or SP surveys, where people are presented with these tables with descriptions of the attributes, and people have to state what is their preferred mode, and sometimes they're also asked how certain they're about their choice. But the problem is it is well known that these SP surveys have this hypothetical bias, and it is very difficult for participants to comprehend factors like crowding and comfort levels when they are presented with SP tables. And also, there is limited information about the decision making process. But in addition to that, it is because of the nature of the lack of interaction with the SP scenarios, we are not able to capture the effect of experience and learning when we are collecting data through traditional SP surveys. On the other hand, VR offers the opportunity to immerse the users in future scenarios so that they can actually experience things like flying taxis or self-driving cars, and we can better capture the effect of experience and learning. And also because it's a very fully controlled scenario in a lab, we can also collect data about their cognitive states and their choice making process when we are collecting the data. So in the VR setup that we used, it had a traditional SP choice task as a starting point. So we presented people with the hypothetical scenario, some of them were work trips, some were leisure trips, and we presented textual descriptions of the modes and asked them to make a choice. Then they experienced the chosen mode in VR, where the VR scenario was a mapped version of what they saw on the SP task. So, for example, if the travel time was 10 minutes, they would see a scaled down version of that in the SP scenario. Then, also in terms of comfort, uh, if it was a comfortable, if the comfort rating was very good, they would have a comfortable VR trip. If not, we came up with different ways to make the VR experience uncomfortable. I will talk more about it later. And we also asked about the choice certainty. And after the VR experience, we presented the same SP table and asked people if they would like to stick with their original choice or would like to choose something different. And we also asked them again about their choice certainty. And each participant uh, had to do 3 rounds of VR experiments. The first round included the current modes: driving a car, taking a taxi, or taking a bus. In round two, it was upcoming modes, which included shared autonomous taxi and private autonomous taxi, and the regular car, where they had to drive a static driving simulator with brake pedal, steering wheel, and acceleration pedal. So it was a real driving experience, or kind of close to similar driving experience. And also, in the third round, there was future modes, hyperloop, air taxis, and trains. So it was focusing more on long distance travel. And each participant in each round had to do 4 choice tasks. And we had this kind of risk that maybe people would just go for variety seeking behavior just to have a taste of the future modes. So, in order to avoid that, we actually had a short pre experiment familiarization where people experienced a taster session for all the alternatives, including air taxis and hyperloops. So the VR representation of the new modes. So there's a QR code here that you can use to scan and just see a video representation of the modes. I will also talk briefly about it in the next slides. But in general, the attributes included the trip type and weather conditions. It was good weather was good lighting condition, and sunny weather, bad weather condition was with fog or with very high traffic. And then we had in vehicle travel time, there was a wait time or pickup time in case of the taxis. Then for the private car, there was a walking time and a parking time involved. Then there was cost. And for the shared modes like public transport, air taxi, hyperloop, and self-driving taxis, there where the number of passengers was an attribute. And then for all the alternatives, we showed how what was the carbon emission involved with that trip in that mode. And we also had this comfort level. So for the self-driving modes, this was by means of, like, if it was comfortable uh, ride, it was a smooth driving recording. Whereas if it was uncomfortable, it involved like harsh braking, very sharp turns, suddenly pedestrians appearing out of nowhere, and the car not braking till the last minute, things like that. And especially same way for air taxis as hyperloops, there was kind of the noise levels and the brake levels were different depending on whether it was comfortable or uncomfortable trip. Same for train and bus as well. So if it was uncomfortable, there was more noise, there were abrupt brakings and things like that. So now to show you a little bit of taster. So this is a shared and private self-driving scenario. So here we can see that people are, the participant is waiting for the taxi, and then we can see, so I'm fast forwarding a bit for the sake of time. Then the self-driving taxi arrives and the participant is teleported inside the taxi.
Welcome, passenger 1407. Next stop is Leeds Road 245.
So this is a shared scenario, so there are other passengers on the car, on the self-driving taxi as well. Whereas if it was, sorry, just a second.
Next stop is Leeds Road 312.
So this was the scenario for a solo self-driving taxi where there was no other passenger in the taxi. shows the other thing is we also show the carbon by means of leaf in the dashboard. So
This is
an
Leeds
angle
Road
being over.
312. You have reached your destination.
So this is the scenario for Hyperloop. The Hyperloop, this was the Hyperloop station. The participant is waiting for the Hyperloop to arrive, and they can see when the next Hyperloop is going to arrive. And again, like the travel times and the waiting times were mapped with what they saw in the SP scenario.
Hyperloop entering the station. Please stay away from the tracks.
So once the Hyperloop arrives, they're teleported inside the Hyperloop.
Hyperloop ready for departure. Please stay seated until the pod comes to a full stop.
So we kind of simulated the speed of the Hyperloop by means of showing
Destination
the travel
reached.
time and the
Please
speed.
don't stand until the doors are fully open. Thank you for traveling with us.
Then I'm also going to just briefly show the air taxi. So this is the person waiting for the air taxi in the taxi stand that's in a rooftop. And again, we show the waiting time, which is mapped with what they saw in the SP scenario.
Aircraft landing. Please remain inside until the doors fully open.
Here's the air taxi arriving and landing. And people are teleported inside the air taxi.
Aircraft taking off. Please remain seated until the destination is reached and the aircraft has landed.
So in order to give the feeling that it's flying, we show the altitude gradually increasing, and they could also see the rotors, and also the view was changing as it was going up. Then it reaches the destination, and the altitude again starts decreasing, and it ultimately lands on another roof.
Destination reached. Please remain seated until the aircraft has come to a full stop and the doors open.
Sorry about that. So now in terms of data, we had data from 71 participants, 44 of them completed the 3 rounds. And as we had to bring people to the university to do the experiments, we had an overrepresentation of young people. And the data included their initial and final choices, how certain they were with the choices, and also some recording of their skin conductance, eye tracking, and EEG data to get some more indications of their thinking process and decision-making process. So in terms of the data, we actually, uh, first of all, looked at if the participants had changed their choices, and we saw that actually there was quite a bit of change in choices after experiencing the VR. So here we can see that a lot of people, especially after driving the car, they realize that actually it's involves quite a bit of uh, cognitive load. So a lot of them switched to bus. On the other hand, people who were initially choosing bus, after choosing the bus ride, maybe they found it too long or they found it too noisy, they switched to car. In terms of the new modes, we saw quite a bit of shift from the regular drive to the private self-driving option, and also a bit of from shared to uh, the regular driving option because people did not like shared AVs that much. In the round 3, we saw quite a lot number of people shifting from air taxis to hyperloops, and people shifting from trains to hyperloop. So hyperloop was quite popular after the VR experience. So we use the data to develop some basic discrete choice models, and we started with the simple model where we had like the initial utility before the VR experience included the different components of travel time, the IV in-vehicle travel time, out-of-vehicle travel time, cost, and number of passengers wherever applicable, and then comfort level and the carbon emission. And we assumed that the final choice, that was the choice after the VR, that was a scaled version of the initial preference. And there was also a separate constant. And also, we acknowledged the fact that there may be a bit of inertia of people sticking to their pre VR choices. So that is why we had the stickiness parameter as well. And we also compared it with the online survey that the people had filled in. And this was a bigger sample of 1,000 participants. So there was overlap between the people who participated in the VR or not. And we had this scale coefficient again to acknowledge that there may be potential scale difference between the initial and final choice. So in terms of the results, they were as per expectation. I'm not going through the details, but I would like to highlight that the sensitivity to comfort, it was significant, which in the version where we also included the VR data, in the online only version, it was not significant. And also there was quite a bit of stickiness. So it's not that after the VR experience, people radically changed their choices, but so there was a tendency to stick to their original choices. And also there was significant scale difference between the 3 versions, the online SP, the pre-VR experience choice, and the after VR choice. We also compared the willingness to pay values compared to the online and the VR study. And we found that after experiencing the VR, there was quite a bit of change in their sensitivities towards time and cost. So we found that basically the sensitivity to travel time, both in vehicle and out of vehicle, that increased after the VR experience. Carbon was still not significant, but comfort became significant and higher after the VR experience. Now, in terms of ongoing work, we are also looking at the effect of stress or during the experiences on their choices. And this is a paper that we worked with from University of Chile, and it's under review in Transport Research Part C. And we're also now looking at how to incorporate the eye tracking data and how we can augment the models with EEG data, especially bridging with models from mathematical psychology. So here are the QR codes for the full scenarios. And I also included a QR code for another study we did by reusing these kind of VR scenarios where we try different nudge mechanisms to shift people towards greener modes. This is also under review. But in general, if you're interested to collaborate, you have questions, if you want to use the data, if you want to use the VR scenarios, please drop me an email. Here's my email address. And again, like, sorry for not being here in person, but I would love to hear back from you. Thanks.